So this is a conversation between Jack Pinner and myself. More of a conversation than an interview. Um, and one of the reasons why Jack and I are having a bit of a conversation right now is Jack just recently did his body fat test, which was at like 4.8%, which everybody wants to throw out. Well, there's a 2% margin. Even at 2%, that'd still be 7%. That's pretty good. You know?
Yeah, that was the thing. Is I don't even know if I'm 4 or 5 or
Yeah.
7, but I mean, unless there is a 4% error, I'm pretty happy. So
Yeah, at a certain point, I'm not really sure that it matters all that much. One of the things that this is, by the way, the second time we've done this conversation. The first time we had a great hour and 20-minute long conversation.
yeah, it was like an hour and a half.
Yeah, they got jacked up. So hopefully this one works a little bit better, and the new software that I'm using ends up doing what it's supposed to do. So let's kind of run through some of the stuff that we talked about last time, or what do you remember as the big takeaways from our conversation before?
Well, like training for performance rather than like the whole idea of like chasing fitness, letting body comp follow, and like having goals that go beyond like being rich or like I want to look like that guy. Like there has to be some sort of like external driving force beyond just like body composition. Like you need to take training as an end in itself, not just like a means to an end.
Right. Yeah, I think for me, I spent the good portion of the year last year, getting above 30 down to, sub 10, and the whole focus at that point was burn fat, burn fat, burn fat. And, there was a lot of people that were like, well, why wouldn't you just go the next level and get down to 5%, as if like 5% is somehow magical and like fairy dust is going to go around my head and, gnomes are going to come out dancing.
You're going to never put on another ounce of fat once you get down past that threshold.
Right. I mean, all I remember about getting down to 9% was...
You're probably hungry a lot.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't like really super restrictive like it can be. I think at that point, because I was actually recording a lot of my calories. I think I was kind of in the 1800 realm. So it wasn't super restrictive like some people would be. But I knew, the whole time going into it that the goal was going to be, to try and gain muscle for the next year. And that has sort of been what my journey has been, and that's sort of where our conversations intersected, because as much as I'd learned how to lose fat, gaining muscle and adding tissue was something that sort of eluded me at that point. And I think that when we started talking about this performance conversation, it sort of led us into like the conversation related to carb backloading and things of that nature. And why don't you talk a little bit about some of the things that you and I have figured out related to getting glucose into the cell, how that made a big impression on your body fat test.
Yeah, well, for me, it's just what I think carb backloading does is that it just makes you so good at processing it, and it's a really good damage control. Like, what I noticed was that before, like, an equal amount of carbs, whether it be, like, say, like 250 grams, was way better processed of backloading rather than, like, say, like, the lean gains protocol, where like you're gonna have like 3 meals, like at like 1, 5, and 8 p.m.
Yeah.
All with like the same. But like if you just get it all in one dose, you like the next morning, the difference in fullness and dryness was second to, I mean, so much better coming from the carb backloading.
Yeah, I know. Like from me, my experiments with it have been a little different than yours because I was using maltodextrin, and I've been using some dextrose, and shakes. Actually, in the last couple days, I haven't been feeling all that great, so I kind of laid off the shakes for a few days just to try and pack in some more nutritious type food, just to kind of heal my body a little bit. But the response was just so immediate. I mean, when you have, I was having shakes with 80 grams of maltodextrin and then 20 grams of dextrose. Within 10, 15 minutes, I mean, your muscles feel full. And I don't know, what your opinion on carb backloading is, because I think to a certain extent, I mean, these guys have to sort of put it out there. I do think Kiefer's really smart. I think that, there's a lot of science behind what he's saying. But there's also, by the way, I don't know if you guys can hear the lawn service that's out my window here, but it's kind of noisy over here. But what ends up happening, I think, is that some of the stuff that has been known for a long time, sort of the post-workout shakes, things of that nature, that's a norm. That's not really that different. I think where the difference comes, like Alan Aragon's suggestions, is somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 grams of carbohydrate with like 20 grams of protein, and whereas Kiefer's suggestions are almost double or triple that.
Yeah, actually, I went back and looked through some of Kiefer's stuff, and it's actually not as high.
Okay.
I have the book. I've read through the book.
Yeah.
And he writes an example for a 175-pound guy should probably be getting maybe between 50 and 70 grams in the post workout. And if somebody's in the maybe 225-pound range, a way bigger guy, then yeah, his levels are going to be a little bit higher.
See, but that's a great example though, because I think what ends up happening with all this stuff is that people go, well, that's what Kiefer said to do, so that's what I'm going to do. And I think to a certain extent, one of the things that you and I have learned together is that you have to sort of take the reins yourself, and you have to kind of see what works for you, and we get these questions all the time, in the Lean U group where, people are like, well, just tell me what to do. It's like, well, what works for me isn't going to necessarily work for you. Exactly. I might work out a little different,
And that's why I like Kiefer so. I've come to really initially I was this guy's full of it. He's just on some marketing gimmick. There's no way he's putting down boxes of cherry turnovers. But if you go and look at a box of cherry turnovers, maybe that's only 3 turnovers, and then you're oh well. He's having 3 turnovers, he's probably 6 feet tall, 210 pounds, you can get away with that. But the biggest thing is that it's the idea of biofeedback. And there's people, I think Mallory and I were talking about this in the group, where I was going probably fasting 18 hours a day, and then training fasted, and I was saying I would get this weird feeling at around 2 p.m. where I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. And I figured that wasn't necessarily a good thing,
Yeah, right.
But so I took that and I was my body's giving me a weird feedback. I'm gonna switch things up. This is consistently happening. Something needs to change, and so I just started cutting the fast shorter and stopped training fasted, and it's much better now. And so there's people out there who, Kiefer has said, nobody is going to be able to understand you better than the own signals that your body's giving you. Yeah. So if it doesn't work for you, then it's not working for you. You're not doing something wrong. It's not you need to try to do that more. It's just not working for you. So it's about finding what is going to give you the most optimal thing. And that might not even be doing intermittent fasting. That might not even be carb backloading, but
yeah,
you gotta try as much as you can, and nobody, as much as anybody can say this is what I do, you should try this. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. stop doing it.
Right. Yeah, I think that was another part of the conversation that we had last time was, when you find something that isn't working, try and adjust to something else. I mean, there's always like the basic idea, and I think to a certain extent, we've all kind of come to the conclusion that there really is.
There's a template.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that there isn't a recomp strategy because for the most part, that's sort of what you did, right?
I don't even want to really know if to say like I recon. I think I just got better at. I just got more efficient at it. So like I got more efficient at delivering glucose, which meant processing it better, which means I could lift heavier and get stronger. But I mean, I would be very surprised if my actual like tissue amount
right,
changed a lot during that time.
right.
Like
Because I mean, not to interrupt you, but when you look at the last test that you had compared to this test, obviously they were from two different facilities, so it's not a direct comparison, but um, you do see this all the time with Tim Ferriss and Martin to a certain extent, where guys talk about they put on 20 pounds of muscle,
yeah,
when in fact, if you go from, a low ketogenic, low glycogen storage type
where you're
of
flat.
scenario, right, and then you add all that stuff back in, it gives the appearance, even on a test,
Yeah,
where you went from very low amount of muscle to a very high amount of muscle, but really all you did was just change the amount of glucose in your storage. And
yeah.
so yeah, I think the efficiency. I do kind of feel like because I do have more carbs during the day. Like I'll typically have breakfast around 9 or 10 o'clock now, whereas when I was doing lean gains or even like my bastard version of lean gains would be I would eat around noon. Now I eat more 9, 10 o'clock. I'll have 3 or 4 eggs. Maybe some bacon, maybe some strawberries, maybe some bananas. Just because when I go to work out at noon, I feel better with that stuff.
Yeah,
And that matters. I mean,
exactly. And there you go. And that's a perfect example. Like you probably had a few workouts without the bananas
for
and the
sure.
strawberries, and you say I didn't really feel good, rather than being like, well, I didn't feel good because maybe I had too much vegetables. So like it's just
Yeah.
if you kind of know once you've been doing it and like training long enough, you kind of know like what is going to work for you, or you have an idea if something goes wrong, like what you were missing.
Well, and one of the problems that I think that the good majority of people have is, and a lot of people come to me and say, "Well, okay, dude, just tell me what to eat." You know, if that's what you need from me, I mean, yeah, we can do that. You can pay me to do it, and this and that. But you're really not going to be better off long term because the minute you're done with me, it's sort of like all these people that buy the box systems. The minute those box systems stop showing up at your door, you're going to
Yeah,
get fat again.
yeah, exactly.
And so once you understand the process, like we had somebody in the forum today, talk about, you know, trying to adjust their training protocol. And the basic idea of training is that you're breaking down tissue ultimately to build it back up. There's a certain amount of rest that's required, for every individual that's different based on, age, volume adaptation. There's really a lot of factors that sort of go on
So
there.
yeah,
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit, kind of getting back to that about, your training and letting that be the guide and talk about what, you did um, during the time.